Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Tuesday, January 25th, 2022, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens, you will see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the partnership between Happening Out Television Network and Hotspots Magazine. Hotspots is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ plus experience. We bring you the best of LGBTQ plus news, entertainment, and support of our community.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and let me let you in on a little secret. We're doing a beta test live right now in Roku. So whatever platform you're watching us, go to your television and you can see Queer News Tonight. But keep it a secret because we launch February 1st. Let's begin by welcoming Tony Lima. Tony is CEO of SunServe here in South Florida as one of Florida's most important LGBTQ service organizations. He is a longtime South Florida LGBTQ plus activist and political advocate. Good evening, Tony.
Good evening, Al. I'm so happy to be here with you now that folks are going to be watching us on Roku. Tell us how we look. Leave us a message on our Facebook page. With that, we're going to welcome anchor John Hayden. John's been a journalist for 27 years and now works for several South Florida outlets, including SFGN, covering politics, arts, and the bar scene, mostly for the latest on Happy Hours. He spent much of his career covering the stupidity and scandals of Hollywood and interviewed nearly every big name in TV, movies, and music. John considers the time he had to sit and interview Shirley MacLaine after she yelled at him as the scariest 4 minutes of his life. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Tony. And to the viewers at home, we don't have a wide shot so you can't see, but oh my gosh, just off camera, you can check out Tony's boom mic. Oh my God. Huge. Now let's welcome anchor Tarek Turjuman. He is the host of Tonight with Tarek for Villain Theater, the only place for alternative comedy in Miami. And he's a member of the House of Yas, the Villains Theater's queer performance art collective, and Florida's only all LGBTQIA+ improv comedy show. He is a queer, Guatemalan-born Palestinian comedian living in Miami, which checks all the boxes to make people in Oklahoma's heads explode. Good evening, Tarek.
Yeah, I always tell people I'm a triple threat, you know? Don't know how to dance or sing. But also, if I met Shirley MacLaine and she didn't yell at me, I'd be so disappointed. So good for you, John.
Thank you, it was fun.
Now let's welcome Maxx Fenning from Prism. At just 17, Maxx founded the amazing nonprofit organization that works to expand access to LGBTQ+ inclusive education and sexual health resources for LGBTQ+ youth in South Florida. Now at 19, because that's what I was doing at 19, Maxx is a senior at the University of Florida and serves as Prism's president. Good evening, Maxx.
Hello, I'm happy to be the token teen on QNT, here to provide you all with
The token
teen.
Wow.
That sounds a little...
Wow, that was shady.
plethora of teenage angst to go along with it. Very exciting.
Move on, Max.
We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Tuesday, January 25th.
Well, let's begin by queering up politics. Big story here. Gay Trump insurrectionist Brandon Straka threatened Queer News Tonight with libel. Now he's convicted. October 16th of 2020 seems a lifetime ago. The election had not yet happened, and the Happening Out Television Network produced a unique LGBTQ plus political debate here at Sunshine Cathedral. One of the stars of the debate was GOP activist and founder of #Walkaway and Trump Best Bud, Brandon Straka. Watch this.
Well, the question is, will there be a peaceful transition of power? If Donald Trump gets elected, I think that there's no reason to assume so, because there still hasn't been a peaceful transition of power since Trump was elected in 2016. Until Donald Trump got elected, I didn't realize that mental illness was contagious. That's when we began to see everybody on the political left in this country. First, it was the Russia collusion delusion. Then it was impeach, impeach, impeach. Now Nancy Pelosi's trying to say that he's not fit for office. It has been 4 years of refusal to admit that Donald Trump won a duly elected presidency. So we have absolutely no reason to assume that the Democrats will have a peaceful transition of power. Now, on the flip side, we, after watching this circus for the last 4 years, have every reason to believe that the Democrats will cheat, because that's what they always do. And if we have evidence that they cheat, you bet your ass we're going to make sure that this election was won fairly and squarely.
Ooh, he's regretting those words now. Queer News Tonight reported that Strzok served as a speaker for an event, of course, the events leading up to the insurrection. In addition, he took part in storming the Capitol, which he filmed to be later posted online. When Queer News Tonight reported on this, he texted me personally, denying the events and claiming that we were lying. During the assault of the building, Strzok encouraged the masses to push past police and then later encouraged some to take a policeman's shield. He did not enter the Capitol building. He was later arrested, and his social media videos and tweets were used against him by the prosecution. Strzok signed a plea deal with prosecutors to provide information about the events that led and participated in for January 6th. Though he has denied being an informant in various social media posts, according to his publicly available plea deal, Strzok had to provide law enforcement agents with copies of any social media accounts, postings, videos, or photos that he still had access to, as well as sit for an interview with law enforcement regarding events in and around January 6, 2021. In exchange for this cooperation, prosecutors agreed to recommend a lighter sentence. After a series of delays, Brandon Strzok was sentenced on Monday to 3 months of home detention wearing a GPS tracker, as well as 36 months of probation. He was also ordered to pay $500 in restitution to the architect of the Capitol, a $5,000 fine, and sentenced to community service. And we remind you that Brandon Strzok is identified as the top LGBT face associated with the insurrection of January 6th and the American Capitol building.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's worth mentioning what we were just seeing there on the side of the screen too, was your text conversation with him.
We've published for the first time the complete, if we could show that again, for the first time we're showing the complete text conversation that I had with Brandon. And we reported that he appeared in Washington related to Stop the Steal. He said retract. Basically, I'm summarizing the text that you're seeing. Retracted, or you'll be hearing from my attorney or attorneys, and suggesting that we committed libel. And we found the documentation. He said he was not present. We found the documentation of a deleted video of him being pepper sprayed and him filming it, and the people accessing into the Capitol building. We reported that, and then the process of him reporting, when we reported that, he went silent and no longer was threatening that he was going to sue me or Queer News Tonight, because we provided the proof of it. And then, of course, the serving warrant and the process of Strzok's involvement in January 6th. Telling. The entire thing is telling, isn't it?
Very much. I think everybody involved in the January 6th insurrection should not be tried for disorderly conduct, should not be tried for trespass. They should all be tried for treason. They literally tried to stop a constitutionally required process. They should all be tried for treason and spend the rest of their lives in a supermax. Supermax, by the way, is not what we call Maxx Fenning on Halloween.
She got jokes.
You know what's especially
Yeah, come to Villain.
that was good. That was good. You know what's especially satisfying? That someone like this that has been so seemingly gutsy in the past and so outspoken and threatening libel and this and that and having such a loud voice at the round table that we showed earlier here at Sunshine Cathedral with a ton of egg on his face now. It's like, dude, shut up.
Yeah.
You should have seen the writing on the wall. And it's interesting to me, the whole concept of having an LGBTQ plus supporter of Trump is still anathema to everything that I am as a cisgender gay man of color living in this community. So it's shocking to me to see these people that have been so outspoken, but very satisfying to see them fall like this guy has fallen
Just,
now.
Max, to interrupt you just 1 second, then we'll come to you. Just as a reminder to Tony's point, estimates and polling suggest that 27% of the LGBTQ community voted for Donald Trump in 2020.
Well, that just reminds you that whiteness overrides anything, including your sexual orientation. So no matter maybe you're queer and you hang out with a lot of liberal people, you know, if you haven't had a certain experience or you're not exposed to certain kind of people, you're not going to change. You're not going to evolve in your mentality. And that's what I think happens, especially in the state of Florida, which, by the way, we have a record for the most insurrectionists. So we do. So far, 77. I believe it's 70-something Floridians were involved. So that's the only records we can break, right?
Really keeping up that Florida man stereotype.
We never.
No, you know, I think I do agree with what Tony said about you know, the satisfaction of, you know, you see those texts and he's like, just send, and he just says, you know, just short response, just send me the link whenever you revoke your statement, and then.
You know, and one final thought here. I personally have gone through a lot of guilt on this because through the process of 2019 and it's happening out, and then 2020 for Queer News Tonight, and it's happening out in our programs, I tried very, very hard to represent in our news programs the conservative point of view in the LGBTQ community. As bizarre and crazy as I thought Donald Trump was, I tried my best not to disrespect the conservative LGBTQ voice, up to even doing that debate. And when the supporters of Brandon Straka, he had 500,000 followers. 500,000 followers. Mm-hmm. This is substantial. This is not a micro organization of thought. When they got out of hand at Sunshine Cathedral, I admonished them clearly and strictly and said, we will have you removed from this town hall debate. And it stopped. I gave them every opportunity to reasonably present point of view for education that leads to this. When he was participating in that town hall, it never really dawned on me that it would lead to what we saw on January 6th. And I have guilt about it because I gave the platform opportunity of free speech and debate and exchange of ideas with people that didn't embrace the same democratic principles, which is what led to January 6th. And it's a guilt that I still process, which is why we've spent so much time on this story and his sentencing and the reveal of the release of the text messages that I had with Brandon Straka over this issue.
And now we queer up gay culture and, unfortunately, stay with empowered Trumpsters. Trumpsters' small town takeover leads to repeal of LGBTQ rights. A central Pennsylvania borough became a hotbed of conservative activism after the local council passed a non-discrimination ordinance that included LGBTQ people. After a heated election, a group of Trumpers gained a majority on the council, and the first thing they wanted to do, repeal the ordinance, specifically to remove protections for LGBTQ plus people. Yesterday, in a vote of 7-3, the council voted to repeal the ordinance, stripping away the protections for LGBTQ plus members of the community. Minutes of the meeting should be approved and published by February 14th, at which time we'll be able to find out exactly who on the council voted against equality. Watch this.
Now, members of the LGBT community spoke tonight, saying that when people go to the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission with a complaint, it gives them a local law to point to that indicates that discrimination isn't allowed in the community. But most of the members of council argued that it was just a piece of paper without legal standing and unnecessary bureaucracy.
Why do you hate my community? Because that's what this is about. It's about hatred.
You want to divide this community. Our kids are reporting the fact that they're getting bullied, pushed downstairs, barked at, and called multiple expletives.
Where's God at? Let me tell you, I have nothing against anybody here. I just have a different opinion.
I think by creating special protections for people, we open the door for other special protections for other people.
Pennsylvania, as some of you may know, is the only state in the entire Northeast that does not have statewide protections for LGBTQ individuals.
I find it so you know, I find it so interesting that it becomes an issue to have non-discrimination protections for other people, the horror that non-discrimination protections are a watershed moment for more non-discrimination protections. Whatever will we do if more people are protected from having their rights violated?
Yeah.
You know, like why is that the slippery slope, so to speak? The slippery slope to what? Equality? What is the end hellfire that we're worried about?
Yeah. Exactly. They're worried about equality. You know, most of the men speaking out were white, old, probably cis men, right? Mm-hmm. So I think they're just reflecting their experience and lack of experience in many senses, you know, because in this country, most minorities like us, and, you know, like me, I'm a Latino, I'm gay, I'm Arab, so I've had some of an experience. But if you don't, how do you make yourself aware? And I think that's what's happening in this country.
Equality doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. There's enough equality to go around if we're willing to release it. And something that was not mentioned in this story is that they also got rid of a panel that would investigate claims of discrimination. So now that, you know, they don't have to listen. It's the equivalent of going, you can't see me, which makes me so mad. Tony?
But this is what's expected, right? This is the world that I come from. This is the world where I worked in and lived in for many, many years. When we have progressive government at the federal level, and in the end, all politics is local, this is what happens. The attacks start at the very local level. It's something that we're to expect, and that's why we have to continue doing the work that we all do at the local level. Organizations like SAVE and Equality Florida are very relevant because they have to continue protecting rights at the local level when they don't exist at the state level. So it's not surprising. This is the way that it works. It's a cycle. You have federal progressive government. This is what happens at the local level. And the important part is to not let up and continue fighting for those local protections.
You know, politicians lie. Newsflash, politicians lie. And we just watched a report, and we don't know yet publicly, we tried to find out today, the individual commissioners and identification of vote. But they've repealed this on this 7-3 vote because it was unnecessary bureaucracy. Mm-hmm. That is a lie. That is a political lie. It is coverage of using a political lie to discriminate. First, let's make sure that we are clear. Where else in the world are they doing something like this in terms of political lie of reversal? They're doing it in Hungary and Poland and Russia. Mm-hmm. And a third of the countries in Africa. Mm-hmm. This town in Pennsylvania is now in the same category as Poland and LGBTQ free zones that did the exact same thing in justification. We don't need these kind of protections, and in fact, we shouldn't have them because it gives special rights. Congratulations, this small town in Pennsylvania, you're Hungary. The third thing that I think is really devastating in this decision, this is a tiny little no-account place. Who cares about this little town? But what is so devastating about this is they passed this ordinance, or they passed this rebuke 7-3 by saying it's a slippery slope to give other special rights. Yes, that's exactly what the Voting Rights Act in 1965 was designed to do. And the reason is because white people for more than 100 years oppressed people that were freed from a civil war, from slavery. They needed special rights. And that's why we had a Voting Rights Act and a Civil Rights Act, because we had to provide special rights to protect these classes from you, old white guy. That's why we have these kind of laws. So your argument is completely ridiculous. The final devastating thing about this 7-3 vote in this tiny little no-account Pennsylvania town is to my LGBT brothers and sisters and trans and non-binary. We continue to raise alarms that you better get involved and you better pay attention, because there's a whole class of Americans out there that want to reverse your rights. Religious, in the Supreme Court, and even marriage equality. If you take stuff for granted, you're soon going to be living in a little small town in Pennsylvania today.
Preach, Brother Al. With that, let's queer up gay culture. 100+ church officials come out as LGBTQ+ to protest Catholic homophobia, presenting a fresh test for the church, which has long resisted calls to modernize when it comes to LGBTQ+ rights. 125 former and current priests, teachers, church administrators, and volunteers came out on Sunday. In a Change.org petition, the group wrote that while some have bravely and dared to come out in the past, others have only just taken the step. Jointly, the group is demanding that church leadership bring an end to outdated statements of church doctrine when it comes to sexuality and gender. Among the group's calls is a plea for the church to give LGBTQ+ people of faith access to God's blessings and sacraments, and to oppose LGBTQ+ discrimination in all its forms.
Love that.
I mean, the Pope has been on the fence about this, for years. I mean, we all think we know his heart is on one side, but he has to stay on the other side to a little bit, but pushing them forward. But every step helps. What we need, though, is American bishops to quit their homophobia and their hate and start preaching a little bit of love.
By the way, there seems to be a theme growing of older white guys.
Lucky for you, huh?
Well, fortunately, I'm not 30 yet, so I'm not quite in that category. I'm with you, Max. I'll see you at the video arcade after the show.
No,
Video
I thought the Catholic Church was like a gay organization, for God's sake. But they like it closeted, The orgies are better. Yeah. But there's literally orgies in the Vatican.
Fear of getting caught, all that.
And it's the Catholic Church. And I just like organized religion, so who cares? Be free, y'all. Go free people in Africa that are gay.
Wait, did the Guatemalan Palestinian just say y'all?
Yeah. Well, I am a Floridian too. Okay, 20 years in counting.
Okay, all right. Tarek, it's up to you. We're going to talk some sports, and I know how much you enjoy that.
Yay, sports ball.
Oh my God, the sports. Okay, let's do this. We're the lesbians when you need them. Wait, I got lost. This is me playing sports.
We're going to queer up sports.
All right, let's queer it up in sports. LGBTQ+ advocates ask NCAA not to end non-discrimination protections. As the NCAA votes on change to its constitution, LGBTQ+ advocates are calling on the organization to keep non-discrimination language that they say protects queer athletes in a moment where they are particularly vulnerable. The clause in question is just 5 lines long, but for transgender student athletes, it could be the difference between playing or giving up the sports they love, LGBTQ+ advocates say. The National Collegiate Athletic Association membership convenes this week to consider proposed annual changes to its constitution. Among them, the removal of non-discrimination statement that would have barred colleges from rejecting athletes based on sexual orientation and gender identity, among other things. This, quote, principle of non-discrimination, end quote, was included in the 2021 NCAA Constitution. It reads in part, quote, It is the policy of the association to refrain from discrimination with respect to its governance policies, educational programs, activities, and employment policies, including on the basis of age, color, disability, gender, national origin, race, religion, creed, or sexual orientation.
And I'd like to, if I can give a little bit of background, the NCAA is a toothless organization that was really gutted by last year's Supreme Court decision that said athletes can earn money off their name, image, and likeness, which was a huge step forward. But the fact is, they're rewriting their whole constitution, not just amending. They're like really trying to give themselves some relevance. And a lot of conservative athletic directors and university presidents who make up the board are kind of hoping that this will just sort of slip through and nobody will notice. I think if we raise enough red flags and start yelling enough that we might be able to get this back in there, because they have pulled tournaments from discriminating states like North Carolina a few years ago. So it is.
Korea.
Might as well
Have you been to Charlotte? So, but no, I think this is something that can be saved, but we do have to pay attention to it. I'm glad we're doing this story this evening.
You know, Tony, I want to ask you, you've worked in trans activism so deeply for so long. Is there, in the short to intermediate term, reversal of trans rights in the states has just been overwhelming in the last year. Does this surprise you that the NCAA may consider not extending non-discrimination protections? Does it surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me because I think it all goes along the same vein. What we were talking about before in these small towns, the reversal of non-discrimination protections, it also gets to organizations like this. The conservative lobbying effort on all fronts is strong and very real, which is why now that we're under this Biden administration and seemingly enjoying all of these wins and strides, we can't take our eyes off of the local level, the corporate level, affiliations, organizations, because that's where the attacks will come to. And we know, as we've talked about before, that the trans issue is quickly becoming the wedge politically. Why? Because people fear trans people. People don't understand trans people, and it's easy to make them the enemy and who to fear.
Well, there it is. Max, we're going to move on to this story.
Next, let's queer up trans rights. 11-year-old Time Kid of the Year finalist is trans activist. Last week, Queer News Tonight reported on 11-year-old Kai Shapley, who has been chosen as a finalist for Time's Kid of the Year award. Kai wowed us all with her speech in front of Texas Senate, where she spoke out against anti-trans legislation. She continues to speak out for the trans community on her YouTube channel. The channel is under her name and features her conversations on everything from pride to pronouns, and she and her friend and fellow trans youth Sky discuss politics. Even if Kai is not chosen as Time's Kid of the Year, she has won the distinction here at Happening Out Television Network.
Yay!
Max, you're several decades younger than John Hayden. What do you think about?
I think this is awesome. I think I always think that bolstering young LGBT people that are talking about these topics that are so close to home is absolutely important, and bolstering that and supporting that in any way that we can as a community is so paramount to making sure.
I also ask you, Max, you represent, PRISM does such a good job for Gen Zers and millennials, the young voice in LGBT. You hear the stories that we report over and over of what's going on in Florida and America and around the world. The real answer here, the real problem here is frequently, and I can say this because I'm in this boat, older white male. It's the problem. It seems like the natural solution is younger, diversified representation of younger people. That's going to be the solution. Do you agree with that in terms of what you see and do?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that what's most important when we're talking about decision making as a whole is a buy and for model. The people that are making decisions on anything should be the people that are affected by those decisions, whether it be geographically or demographically, in any way, shape, or form. That is so important.
Well, and clearly that's going on right now because Tucker Carlson is completely. Oh wait, never mind.
That is it for our queer headlines for tonight. So let's catch up on the LGBTQ plus news surrounding COVID-19 with our special segment called Quarantine Quickies. I love a good quickie.
Queer News Tonight has reported on coronavirus every week since January 6, 2020. Tonight, we report that as of today, more than 5,119,000 LGBTQ plus Americans have contracted COVID-19.
Queer News Tonight remembers the more than 62,000 LGBTQ plus Americans that have died from coronavirus.
But the news is improving because as of today, more than 535 million vaccination doses have been administered in the U.S. And that is our pandemic news for tonight. Next, we report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine and supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ plus religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Watch this.
My name is Stefania St. Lords, and I am Miss Miami Beach Gay Pride, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, next, we finish tonight's queer news headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus Flash News. Love this story. In LGBTQ plus Flash News, it's LGBTQ South Florida, but it's no longer raining men. It's raining iguanas. Your LGBTQ plus friends in Florida are not okay. We're in danger. This past weekend saw South Florida temperatures drop way into the 40s. And next weekend's forecast show temperatures may even drop into the 30s. Oh. Many of us moved to South Florida to avoid the cold. We don't own coats. We don't own pants. I'm actually reporting at Queer News Tonight right now wearing shorts and flip-flops below the table. Tony Lima has this penchant of wearing a Speedo when he's here, even though he's wearing a suit jacket, and he's apparently got a very big boom mic. Not only are the people outside cold, but unless you're going to one of the Urge Miami circuit parties dressed as a sexy construction worker with a hard hat, you have to watch out for iguanas. Literally, they are falling frozen from the trees when they get to this temperature. They just fall out of the trees. We've had our 2 days of winter. Let's pause there. 2 days. And we're ready for it to stop raining iguanas and start raining men again in South Florida. Thank you. Thank you.
I was anxious to show my Speedo, but for some reason production didn't pan my way, so there you go. Call me.
Well, my hot tub is 101 degrees, and I do know how to make an excellent hot toddy, so come on over.
Was that for me?
How's it in
for
Indiana
everyone
with your friends?
Slutty.
Honestly, with all of the stories that we've covered today, I'm wondering if the iguanas are the invasive species, or is it the men that we're asking to start raining again?
And by men, you mean Al Ferguson.
We don't have it in the story, but there's estimates that 7,000 iguana have fallen out.
If you leave Al out in the cold, he'll freeze. He's cold-blooded. I'm a bear. I love the cold, so it's nice not to sweat for a week.
Yeah.
LGBTQ plus Flash News. Texas trans prisoner may be the nation's first to get gender surgery while in federal custody. An inmate currently housed in a North Texas prison could become the first transgender person to receive gender-affirming surgery while in federal custody. Christina Nicole Iglesias is a transgender woman serving a 20-year sentence for threatening to use a weapon of mass destruction against the British government. She was transferred to the Florida Medical Center Carswell, a women's prison in Fort Worth, in May 2021. Iglesias has unsuccessfully requested the prison's bureau approve her for gender-affirming surgery since 2016. But late last month, a federal judge ordered the agency to meet to discuss her case before January 24th, which was yesterday. Now, Iglesias' lawyer says this was the first time a federal judge has ordered the agency to evaluate such a request. Queer News Tonight has been unable to reach anyone at the Bureau of Federal Prisons offices for an update in this case. And I am very happy that she's going to be getting, hopefully getting a look for her treatment. But don't mess with the Queen of England. She will throw you into the Tower of London and say, "Off with her head!"
Sorry. No, I mean, I very interesting crime for the first trans individual to be receiving gender affirming surgery, but I support her nonetheless.
I gotta give it to trans people, always going above and beyond. You know, she didn't do a stupid bank robbery. She didn't do like credit card fraud. You know, she threatened the British government with terrorism. I'm glad she's not Arab or Muslim, but that's crazy. I'm still on the headline. Yeah, she should get all the surgery she wants, you know?
And in related news, Tucker Carlson's head exploded today, and then he moved to Texas to marry the very sexy brown M&M.
That was awesome. Actually, let's not miss the greater point here. Yes, she has a really interesting crime, not committed by many people at all. But the fact that she's getting gender reassignment surgery within one of our prisons is really a plus. Like, our trans people in confinement suffer so much. They are sometimes denied their hormones, they are mistreated, they are raped at times. So this is definitely a plus for the trans community.
Yeah.
With that, one of my favorite stories ever in this next LGBTQ plus flash news. Very special 1986 gay Golden Girls episode created most enduring lesbian joke on TV. Thank you for the story, because we know how much I love the Golden Girls. The Golden Girls were decades ahead of their time when it came to acceptance and social issues. 35 years ago, they pushed for LGBTQ plus acceptance with storylines that included Blanche's brother coming out as gay, and one special episode that involved a friend of Dorothy's, pun intended, named Jean. So Jean was married to Pat, who's recently passed on. The other women in the house have been assuming that Pat was a man, and Dorothy's been unsure about what to say. Jean also starts to have quite the crush on Rose. When trying to gauge if the housemates would be accepting, she has a conversation with her mother, Sophia, where Sophia says, quote, "I'll tell you the truth, Dorothy. If one of my kids were gay, I wouldn't love him one bit less. I would wish him all the happiness in the world," end quote. Dorothy then tells Sophia that Jean is in love with Rose, and the hilarity ensues. This gets Dorothy and Sophia laughing, and when Blanche asks what's so funny, they explain that Jean is a lesbian. Blanche doesn't get what's so funny, and when Sophia asks if she's surprised, Blanche replies, quote, "Of course not. I mean, I haven't known any personally, but isn't Danny Thomas one?" End quote. Dorothy's response, quote, "Not Lebanese, Blanche. Lesbian," end quote. So yes, the Lebanese joke used by Ellen in 1996 and Santana on Glee started way back with the Golden Girls. And about that, Sophia said it best, quote, "Jean is a nice person. She happens to like girls instead of guys. Some people like cats instead of dogs. Frankly, I'd rather live with a lesbian than a cat. Unless the lesbian sheds, that I don't know," end quote. I love this story. The Golden Girls were so far ahead of their time, and that's what makes them so relevant today and why their fan base endures. Fans like me who watch night after night are reminded that these women have helped just bring us to the next level as LGBTQ people.
Yeah.
Simultaneously subtle and in your face. That show's brilliance has definitely held up over time.
Yeah, as many have not from the period. No, so I think that being able to see, you know, this sort of like watershed, if you will, of representation is spectacular.
Yeah, and comedically speaking, that show was brilliant. The jokes were so good. The punches were hard. It was almost like watching stand-up sometimes, the excitement. It was, and it's aged very well. Like me, I don't know. Yeah, anyways, let's move on. LGBTQ plus flash news. Science shows people with older brothers more likely to be gay. A new study has found some of the strongest evidence to date that people with older brothers are more likely to be gay, providing some of the best evidence to date supporting the fraternal birth order effect, FBOE, and also finding evidence of it for both lesbians and gay men. The FBOE has been documented in the literature for decades, but the Australian researchers said that previous studies have been small or have had methodological problems. So they looked at data from over 9 million people in the Netherlands and found that the more older brothers a person has, the more likely they are to enter a same-sex domestic partnership, legal in that country since 1998, or a same-sex marriage, which has been legal there since 2001. Men with an older brother were 12% more likely to have registered a relationship with a man compared to men with an older sister, according to the study published in the Journal of Sex Research this month. A man with 3 older brothers was found to be 41% more likely to do so than a man with 3 older sisters.
Well, Tony, in case y'all didn't know, has 9 older brothers, and none of them like Speedos, and none of them like boom mics.
At least they don't acknowledge my booming mic, so to speak.
I think this could lead to an interesting spin-off for the show Big Brother.
Oh my God.
Ooh.
He came with jokes tonight.
You're coming to the open
Villain Theater tonight.
Giving you my spot, 10 p.m.
Yeah.
This is very interesting. I know that we don't rely off of anecdotal evidence, but considering I don't have any older brothers, I think that the whole thing is a farce.
I believe it's science. It coincides with other science in nature that shows the natural way of birth control. And it shows that if you already produce a certain amount of breeders, you don't need any more breeders. And bees do this. So, and other mammals. There's research and all. Go look at it.
I'm looking at Wikipedia.
It ties in. It ties in. I saw it on YouTube, okay? And not secret. No, I didn't.
And everything.
There's science to it. It's called natural birth control.
Yeah.
It's also the earth being kind to us, like, oh, enough with the straight guys. We need a gay.
Right.
You know, this family's boring. Let's get gay, you know?
Of course.
All right, Max.
Next on LGBTQ plus flash news, translation, LGBTQ Jeopardy breaking news. It's just Amy Schneider versus Ken Jennings now. Last night, transgender engineer Amy Schneider became title holder for second most consecutive wins in Jeopardy history and the most held by a woman. Tonight, she continued that record. Tonight's final Jeopardy answer was, in 2018, National Geographic reported that half of this was dead, akin to a forest fire after a devastating fire. All 3 contestants got the correct question. What is the Great Barrier Reef? But Amy's giant lead meant that her wager of $25,000 brought her winnings to $63,000 and her total 40-day winnings to $1,382,800.
What do you think, Max?
I mean, yeah, we've been following this for a hot minute, and I think that being able to see, a trans person so successful on a TV show that also last time we talked about this with me, I mentioned has a predominantly older viewership, I think is also important to note, and that sort of representation on that show in particular is extremely important.
Yeah. Do you watch Jeopardy, Al?
I do.
Oh, see, you're right. So it's good.
Thank you for proving my point.
Yeah. No, it's great representation, and yeah.
I just got hit by a train, by the way, in case anyone didn't see. The representation is absolutely true, and it's not for us here in South Florida. We don't. Well, we always do, but generally we don't need to see absolutely the out there of a very smart trans woman. Where they need to see it is in that little town in Pennsylvania that was at the top of the show. She would kick your ass.
I'm interested in knowing, like, there should be some research done as to who are the demographics of Jeopardy so we can see how many people we're affecting with this incredible representation.
Yeah.
And what I love about her, I think tonight was like win number 40. Yeah, win number 40. Math is hard. But yeah, it was win number 40. And so every night during, when they come back from the first break, we learn a little bit more about Amy. But on her Twitter account, you can learn so much. And I love that she says that one of her favorite parts about being this successful is being able to represent her trans community, which I think is just big ups to you, girl.
And before Tony closes the show, I just want to mention for all of you that are tumbling in on us in Roku tonight in this experiment, you may not know if you have not seen Queer News Tonight, we are reporting on Amy Schneider every single night now. And we'll continue to do that as her streak continues. And we just draw attention to the fact that this is really important for the LGBTQ community, not only for the L and the G and the B and the Q representation, but this spectacular representation in T. And that's why this story is really so spectacularly important. And we just point out to you, we're doing it every single night, and we'll stay with it every single night, because Amy Schneider is an inspiration for the American LGBTQ community.
Go Amy.
We love you.
So that is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates and share the news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you are a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. And that is the passion of the Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Tony Lima, nice Speedo, dude, John Hayden, Tarek Turjuman, and Maxx Fenning. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire